Welcome back to the Practically Pastoring Podcast. My name is Frank, and I'm glad that you are here. Today's episode is going to be a little different. We are going to take a break for the summer because we are all going to different places, doing different things in and out, not only in our churches, but also out of this city, outside of our states. And so we decided to open the floor to you all. We posted on Instagram. We posted on Facebook. We got some text messages. We asked you to ask us anything. And by anything, I mean not just ministry questions, but anything questions. And so we've got questions from pastors and ministry leaders covering everything from theology to awkward church moments and even some more practical ministry hacks. Some questions are deep, some are hilarious, and some we just aren't quite ready for yet. So before we get into it, I want to introduce the crew. My name is Frank. Up in Baltimore, Maryland, we got Jeff Simpson.
What's up, Hon?
Down next to me in the Safety Harbor Community Church Sanctuary or Auditorium or Worship Center.
Worshipatorium.
Cafetorium. We got Andrew Larson.
Greetings and salutations. And yes, I am holding a microphone. We've had some technical difficulties.
And next to him is Timothy Miller.
Hello, hello.
And Delmar couldn't be with us today. He's traveling to Virginia or something.
He's pretty close to me, actually.
Yeah. So he couldn't join us, and this is another example of why we're going to take a quick break this summer. But when we come back at the end of the summer, we're going to be having brand new episodes. And more than just that, we're going to be getting ready to promote the Practically Pastoring Conference.
PPCon 2026.
So let's dive into some of the questions. But before we do that, let's talk about our good friends who helped this podcast and the conference happen. Church merch
For your church.
You know, you've made it as a church when you go to a thrift store and you see your church t-shirts in the thrift store.
It's the best feeling.
They joined, they got involved, and they left.
Man, the life of a church member. It's a new documentary coming soon.
Feels like a Hulu.
Yeah.
What if I told you that you could get such great quality merchandise that even if that couple or that family or that individual leaves your church, they still want to keep that shirt and not donate it to Goodwill?
But Frank, can we get custom designs?
Yes, you can.
What about high quality apparel?
Yes, you can.
Any cringe?
No cringe. Yeah. We're talking, whether you're launching a new ministry, hosting a big event, or just want people to rock some actually good-looking clothing, Church Merch delivers custom designs, high-quality apparel, and zero cringe. Fun T-shirts, from T-shirts to hoodies to mugs to hats to promo gear. If you can dream it, they can print it, and they actually understand church culture, and which makes the process all the more smoother, and the final product is something people actually want to wear. So level up your church swag by going to Church Merch. Go to promotionsguy.com/church merch. The link is in the description, and tell them Practically Pastoring sent you. All right, y'all. We got some good questions. A couple from the Facebook group, a couple from Instagram, a couple from some other people. The first question, let's go a little lighthearted here. Let's ease into this. If your sermon prep playlist had to be one genre, this is a big deal. Like, this is like, I can't mess this up, man. Like, this ruins my vibe. I write worse sermons if my playlist isn't correct. If you can only choose one genre forever, what would it be?
Silence.
Really? You nothing when you write sermons?
Nada.
I don't have music playing.
Whoa.
Spotify has a playlist. It's titled Deep Focus, and they change it every few weeks. It is instrumental music, but not like orchestra or anything like ancient. It's modern instrumental music. Typically, it's almost like motivational. It helps a ton. I can't do lyrics
deeply.
I cannot do lyrics while I'm writing.
It's mostly like chill hop, is what I would say, right? That deep focus.
That's a good genre. Chill hop.
Or like lo-fi beats.
Yep.
I have enough adult ADD that anything is going to distract me. So I study in silence and I write in silence. I also dictate a lot when I'm prepping. And so having stuff on in the background kind of messes with me. So I am in silence, baby.
I will say I do more of the music when I'm doing my read-throughs than when I'm actually writing. There is some music on while I'm writing, but when I'm doing my read-through, I have to have the music on.
I'm the opposite. So when I'm reading through it, it's silence because I want to hear myself say the words and make sure like I'm not like stuttering and things like that. But when I'm actually writing and studying, my only rule is that the music can't have words. It has to be instrumental. So for a long time, I did lo-fi beats. I had a Christian one that was like, there's like a whole like Christian lo-fi beats, like lo-fi worship, I think is the the group that makes it. But then I found myself thinking about the lyrics of the song that it's about.
I couldn't do that.
So I just started finding things like generic lo-fi beats, which is kind of like what you were talking about. But then
Deep focus.
I think Justin Knowles shared this. There's a connection. Justin Knowles is a youth pastor in California that we all know. And from there, it evolved into this. He shared like his sermon writing playlist, and it was all like fast, like above 110 BPM, like music that keeps you awake, but it's all instrumental. Some of it's like hardcore metal music that's like instrumental. So
I would be vibing too hard. It would be so distracting.
So here's what I've reduced it to. Polyphia, I think is the band. Polyphia. Polyphia radio.
Yep.
So I don't want just Polyphia. I want the radio that it kind of suggests stuff, and it's perfect. It's like that kind of world. There's a band called Sungazer. There's a couple other bands. It's like kind of like rock, metal. I don't know. It's kind of a little bit of everything.
I could do explosions in the sky all day. That's fine too.
In between silences.
Mm-hmm.
Jeff, what do you listen to?
So are we doing genre or playlist? Because we broke the rules already. I'll give you both. All right.
So he's like instrumental, like lo-fi.
Genre would be some kind of like ethereal lo-fi beats is kind of the main genre. But I'll give you one playlist that I use a lot. This playlist it's a playlist on Spotify called Alien Cake Lo-Fi 90s grunge, emo, and pop punk, but it's all lo-fied. So like the first song is Heart Shaped Box, but it's lo-fi beat. It's pretty awesome. You're welcome.
So Jeff and Tim, send me those playlists. Like text me those playlists. I'll put them in the show notes.
Nah, bro, I'm gatekeeping. That's for me.
I will put like
Deep silence.
Deep silence. I'll find a YouTube video for deep silence.
So when I first read this, I was thinking of pre-sermon, not sermon prep, because our pre-sermon playlist or the music we have playing when people are walking in, that is a genre.
Dude, pre-sermon playlist is different than pre-service, because when you said pre-sermon, I imagine you in your office with that ankle high AC unit cranked, just listening to something while you sit down and get ready to sit.
It's just the old 90s Bulls starting lineup music.
Yeah,
that's no, but pre-service we have an iPod Classic. That
that's not going to fail.
That has not been updated in
checks out
forever.
And so classic?
Yeah, so we're talking old school
click wheel?
Jeremy Camp click wheel, not like the one with
the
the buttons.
Are you guys not
able
wheel. To put Spotify
we
on
could.
The computer?
We could.
So you have to have a separate device just for the pre-service playlist?
We don't have to. We choose to.
Oh my God.
Andrew literally looks for ways to make his service more inefficient. I'm going to count the people. Do you click play on that too?
I choose to not monkey with things that are not my responsibility. If that's our praise team is the one that does it.
What about counting?
Praise team can play on a playlist too, though.
They could, but they choose to use the iPod.
Andrew, have you handed out counting yet since my sermon?
No.
Oh my.
No one's offered.
No one's offered.
No one's offered. But again, I would say it's not like we're counting to 600 or 700 people. So yeah, I think
that's the point. It's not like you're counting that. So give it to someone else.
It's very true.
All right. Thank you for that question. Let's go to the next question. How do you develop leaders in your church without burning them out? You guys need leadership development.
That's good.
Quick takes.
Well, don't burn them out. Like I would say help them focus on one area of ministry. Like don't try to get them to lead, because there's a temptation in smaller churches to like, man, this person's such a good leader. Yeah, they could do this small group and they could run this and they could do this. And then before you know it, like you have a bottleneck of leadership into one person. So I'm really trying to be like intentional about that this year and spreading some things out where like our small groups is being done by one person. I'm handing over church communications to another person. And I think just keeping in mind as, full-time vocational pastors, like this is, so for me, what I try to keep in my mind is this is the equivalent of my like volunteer coaching with my daughter's team. Is like how much time I have to give to that. That's how much time they have to give to something, So I do think as a pastor, as a leader, one of our responsibilities is to try to help people like guard their time and a big one is their energy. Because some people, they might have like time to do it technically in their calendar, but they don't actually have like the bandwidth or the space in their like energy. So, if there's a family that has multiple kids and both the husband and wife are serving in different roles in the church, and they like always want to do more, or like maybe it's a single person who serves in the church and they have more time, but they just don't have the personality to have that leadership capability or leadership put on them, and they don't have the capacity for that. I think you have to kind of like prayerfully be discerning of that as the pastor, so that you don't just use people until they burn out. Because the metaphor I always like to say is like, we're trying to build a campfire here that's going to last like 30, 40 years. We're not trying to like have a forest fire that burns out in like 5 years. So that's kind of my mindset.
See, I think the same people that were teasing me about doing things myself, the way that you build leaders is you don't make them do things that they don't want to do. They are the sheep, not the shepherd, or the Sherpa, if you will. It is your job as the clergy, as the vocational person, to step in and fill in gaps at times. And so if there isn't someone to do something, sometimes that means that I'm the one stacking chairs or unstacking chairs or whatever it is. And I think letting people know that, hey, we want you to serve. We want you to find your place to serve, your gifting to serve, but you don't have to serve all the time.
I think I would say relationships before responsibility.
Yep.
We've practiced this a lot at Lakeview. We even talk about this in membership class, that yes, we want you to jump in and serve, but one thing that we're pretty intentional about, and Frank, you've actually done a really good job your first few months on staff at Lakeview of investing in people personally before asking them to carry the weight of ministry. I think that's huge. We're also clear, and you guys have been doing it a long time, and we've had volunteers come and go. We talk about seasons of serving at Lakeview, where it might be a great season to serve on the first impression team, and then that season might end, and there might be another one. We don't ever want anyone to feel like, hey, once you say yes, you are locked into that role until Jesus comes back and takes you. So, relationship before responsibility, seasons of serving. I think those are two big ones for us.
Let's go on to another question. If you could outlaw one church cliche phrase,
Love on.
what would it be?
Love on.
Yeah, for sure.
Love on.
Love on you. Love
For
on
sure.
Love on them. That's a word phrase.
Love on.
Love on.
People saying "Daddy
Do you use that a
God"
lot?
when they pray.
Ooh.
Let go and let God.
I still think love on is the worst. Hey, we just want to love on you.
Ugh.
Yeah, it's
Stop
weird.
Yeah, you're right. You're okay,
You
fine.
got to come up with an alternative.
There's others. Do life with.
Doing
Do
life
life,
together.
yeah, dude.
Oh my gosh.
Or navigating
that was
navigating
like edgy a
situations.
couple years ago, but
Yeah.
it got too much.
Navigating is a good one, and I honestly overuse it. Let's navigate this situation. Yeah, let's not.
Here's another one. What's one leadership lesson you learned the hard way, either this past year or so?
I got to go back a few years, so I'll break the rules a little bit, just because I don't know that I've learned anything the hard way this past year with our current staff. But this goes back to previous staff. I would say don't assume silence means agreement. Just because someone on the team isn't speaking up doesn't mean they're always on board with everything. So I think one thing we have to do is learn to ask better questions, maybe create space for honest feedback, even when it's uncomfortable. Otherwise, it's going to lead to a very awkward conversation of misalignment and a lot of pain and heartache that probably could have been avoided earlier had you embraced that difficult conversation a few weeks or probably a few months beforehand.
I think confusing loyalty with capacity, because someone is all in and bought into the church, we want to hand things over to them. But just because someone is all in doesn't mean that they're necessarily a good leader.
It's really good.
Or, it's one of those things, we talk about this a lot, where we can tell when it's a worship leader, or maybe even if it's like someone who's speaking and teaching. But there are lots of areas where someone is enthusiastic and they want to jump in and lead something, but just because they've bought into the mission does not mean that they should lead. And also, just because someone's a good leader does not mean that they're bought into the mission. I think that one hurts a little bit more, when someone who you see the potential in and who you see what they could do in and for the church in the years to come, and then 3 months later they're out. So that one's hard.
There's a phrase I heard a couple years ago, and in this season of my life, with the unique calendar I've been having, since I moved down here. The phrase I'm trying to always remember every week when I start my new week is "swallow the frog," And what swallow the frog means is do the hardest thing on your to-do list first. Because if you don't, you're not going to do it. You're going to keep pushing it down the line and just not do it. So whatever that hard thing on your to-do list,
Like working out
like working
every
out,
single day.
Got him.
The thing you don't want to do, the thing that makes you uncomfortable, whether that's the hard conversation, like me and Tim, I was showing him an email I got, and I was asking him, "What do you want me to do?" And like, I have the hard conversation I have to do this week on a phone call. It's like you just do the hard thing as early as you can, because it's easier at that like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the afternoon when like you're kind of tired after lunch and you're just kind of trying to make it till the end of the day, to do those easy tasks, whether it's like the mindless administrative stuff or it's, the emails or whatever. Like, do the hard thing first that you don't want to do, and then do the easy stuff later. Jeff, what about you?
I think a hard lesson that I learned is just that, like, if you're the lead of something, you're the head of, you're the lead pastor, you're the head of some organization. The reality is you're going to get more critiques than you deserve, and probably more credit than you deserve too. But mostly, like, the lesson I learned was just critiques. Like, people are always going to have a problem with, somebody's going to have a problem with something you're doing if you're the leader. And that's just a reality. And like, if you sign up for leadership, especially if you're the head of something, just understand that, like, the people under your leadership or the people working with you or even like alongside of you, a lot of times they'll disagree with, and what Tim said is true. Silence doesn't mean that they agree with you. It might just mean that they respect the office or they respect you and they don't want to cause trouble. So I think you have to really try to be as like approachable as you can be. And that's it's hard to be approachable if you don't even know that there's disagreement happening. So that's a tough one.
Let's go to the next question. What's one thing you wish you'd done differently in your first year as a lead pastor? This is my question. I want to know as you guys do this.
Well, it was a different situation.
Hey, your first year as a lead pastor is a little bit different than most people's.
I mean, I'm not the first to walk into a church revitalization project, right? Like that.
Yeah, but you're the first to be the youth pastor, the only person left on staff, to then have a contentious vote, have several elders resign, and then as soon as you get voted in, a worldwide pandemic shuts everything down. That's pretty unique.
There were a lot of unique factors, but I'd say something that's universal for all of us would be, do not be afraid to say, I don't know. I think I just felt this pressure to have to know everything and have to do everything. And it was just like, it was insurmountable. And I would like come home every day telling Steph, like they're going to figure out, I don't know what I'm doing. Like someone's going to like figure me out and I'm going to lose my job because I don't know. So once I realized I was allowed to say, I don't know, that's when the Lord really started bringing the right people to surround me to pick up the slack in those areas that I did not know how to do. So that was a big one for me.
I think for me, it's a cliche that people have said, but it's like that idea of don't overestimate what you can do in a year and don't underestimate what you can do in 5 or 7. I say 7 because COVID was part of my first 5 here. So, but yeah, in the first year, it was kind of what Tim said. I mean, the reality for me is it's an issue of insecurity and wanting to be liked by people. It's sort of like wanting to get the praise of man. And so you want to like sort of present yourself like you're the expert at everything. And the reality is you're not. And there are things that you have some expertise at. I wouldn't dismiss that either. You do have training. You do have experience as a pastor that is valuable. And honestly, in the last couple of years, I've seen the experiences I've had as a pastor like play out in other areas of my life, which has been kind of cool. Even simple things like service planning is like an experience that I didn't think would have any other context, but it turns out planning practices for sports teams is very similar to planning a service. So like all of that experience just came into play. But yeah, I mean, there were things that I wanted to do. I wanted to do everything in the first year, completely turn everything around. And and it was like, it just doesn't work like that.
We're going to have 200 by next Easter.
Yeah.
You just wait.
It's just like, that's just not, and that's, to go back to a previous question, having that kind of mindset and that kind of pressure will burn out volunteers and leaders. Because the reality is, if you come into a church like mine, where there was no kids, and you're like, we're going to have 200 kids at Awana next summer, you don't have the staff to do that. And if you try to do it, you're going to burn everybody out, and then it's not going to happen. So you need to set some like 5 to 7 year goals And one of the things I wish I would have realized too, as a pastor that did first year that did create some pain, is like just really grabbing onto the reality that like in 7 years, 5 years, 7 years, the congregation is going to be different people. You're going to lose some friendships and some, people you thought were with you that end up not being with you. And there's going to be new people in that time frame that you're going to look in 5 years, 7 years, and it's like a totally different church.
It's like youth group. Like it's the same as youth group. Every 5-6 years, there's almost a complete turnover.
Wow. I'm going to combine two questions here. The question is, what's your process for preparing a sermon each week? How do you stay fresh? And the other question was, how do you navigate preaching every week?
Oh, navigate.
How do you ever get writer's block? So, how do you guys stay fresh? How do you what's your rhythms? This is short answers, so you don't have to go through the whole 8 hours or less. This is what I do each day.
I think in terms of series, not sermons. And so it's a lot easier to say, hey, I need to figure out 6 or 8 series for this calendar year instead of I need 52 sermons for this calendar year. So if, I think I've got some series mapped out between now and Christmas, maybe into January. And I don't know where I'm going each week, but if I can say, hey, this month we're doing this topic or this book, and here's kind of the overall arching theme that we're trying to get from this book. And so if you think in terms of a series at a time instead of a sermon at a time, then it's a lot easier to break up that series into 4, 5, 6 sermons instead of staring at the blank page and saying, I need 52 sermons right now.
Yeah, I mean, the same thing for me. Once I'm in a series on a book of the Bible, let's say, or a specific text, I mean, it's kind of easy from week to week then. The act of writing is not necessarily easy, but I mean, it's just something that prepping sermons never gets boring to me. It's like I get life out of it. I like it. I do change my sermons. My pattern is I start on, usually Monday is like a half speed day, so I don't really do much writing on Monday, but Tuesday I'll read and think and do a lot of that. Wednesday I'll write a little bit. This is kind of 8 hours or less stuff. I'll write my intro, outro kind of thing. By Thursday, Friday, I'm kind of wrapping up the bulk of the sermon, and then I don't even really look at it on Saturday at all. I just get up really early. My pattern for the last couple of years is I get up really early, like 5 o'clock, 5:30, and I come to the church and it's quiet and, the kids are still sleeping. So I don't have any of that dad guilt that my family's at home waiting for me to come, home. They're sleeping. So I come here, it's quiet. And I, read through my sermon. My father-in-law, who's my preaching professor, told me your sermon's not done until after you deliver it. And so, I'll change stuff that morning. And, staying fresh. I mean, I don't know. I don't feel like it's getting old, and I can't think of a time when I've really ever had writer's block. The only time I get writer's block is if I have to say something that's in the text that's hard, and I'm thinking of specific people who it will be hard for them to hear it. So I don't know if it's writer's block so much as I just want to be really mindful of how I'm saying something. So for those things, I will manuscript out what I want to say and kind of highlight it in my notes so that I don't go off the cuff, because you guys know this, I write a manuscript, but what I actually preach on Sunday is probably 30% off the cuff. That's not in my notes, that I'll just I remember one time during COVID, something didn't record and I was like, oh, I can just go back and preach to an empty room and record it. And it was normally 30-minute sermon. It was 20, because none of the in the room energy stuff was there. So yeah, I don't struggle with writer's block now, right as of now. So
that what you said was a good tip. I think this is a habit that people have to get into, but those 5 a.m. sermon writing situation where you're in there early morning and your brain is so much better early.
Yeah, I don't have any decision fatigue yet.
Yeah, and I've crushed so many sermons, before the sun comes up because of just getting up early. Once you get your cup of coffee and you start sitting down and focusing on the sermon, you're using your. I bet you there's some science behind it, but your brain is most strong in the morning.
I think for me, some of it is maybe some undiagnosed ADHD or something, because I need that deadline to be right there for me to really focus in. I do make a Dunkin' run though. So I'll wake up early and run. There's a Dunkin' Donuts 5 minutes from here and I'll get a large iced coffee. come back, sit down, and work it out.
Time of day hasn't been a huge issue for me. This has been a weird season with my kids in sports. So I've just had not a home office, but a mobile office. So I've done a lot of sermon writing from my son's gym where he trains, or the Starbucks, which is less than a mile away. So a lot of time at Starbucks, getting used to writing in an environment where there's like people 2 tables over, which is weird for me because for years I was basically locked in my home office.
Well, and before that, you had a senior pastor that expected you in the office 45 hours a week.
I still try to stay with my weekly rhythm of a day of study and a day of writing and then a day of a read through. So it's kind of a 3-day sermon prep process for me. Usually Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. Tuesday's the study day. Thursday's the writing day. Saturday it's done, and I'll maybe spend an hour and a half, read through it once or twice to make sure I'm really comfortable with the manuscript. But that's my typical weekly process. Time of day has not been a big deal, which is weird because I used to be with you guys. It was like in the morning after my coffee, but for some reason that hasn't been a huge deal in this season of life. And I'm assuming it's going to be this way for the next several months or possibly years as my kids continue in their sporting careers. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Can I just jump off what you said? I didn't say this, but one of the things that I've learned since now we have 3 kids in the house, and they're all little, like 10 and under, is like I don't have 6-hour blocks of time anymore. Like those just don't exist in my day, especially because like, my schedule is open. So like I'll be, like this morning, I dropped my wife off for her to have a doctor's appointment. I took the 1-year-old we have with us, and we went to Starbucks. I got some coffee. I fed him, and then I came back, picked her up. So like my time is broken up into like 2-hour blocks at most, and kind of spread out weird spots in the day. So you just have to like get the skill of being able to lock in a little bit quicker and get some writing done in I'll even write on my phone sometimes. I'll just pull up Google Docs on my phone and just like, 2 thumbs, look like I'm staring at Instagram, but I'm writing. Or I'm reading. I'm reading through ESV, Bible app or whatever. So like you just have to learn how to, you're not going to get like 8 hours straight to just study.
That was my biggest shift. It used to be I would sit down, I would just take my time. It would be hours and hours before I really got going. And now like I have to just sit and go and just force myself to get right into it. And it's been really helpful. Like it has shaved hours off of my time. I hope that it's not impacted the quality of the sermons. I feel like we're still delivering high quality sermons at Lakeview, but it's just been a different process this season.
I think going back to the idea of a series, when you're preaching regularly, you know that not every sermon is going to move every person. And I think some of the sermons that I have struggled with the most, it took 3 or 4 hours longer in the prep than I wanted. And then the writing, it was slower coming out. And I was like getting to church on Sunday morning saying, God, I don't know what this piece of garbage is. And then I get the pastor, that was great. That was exactly what I needed to hear this morning. I think it's the reminder that like we are part of the process when it comes to preaching. The Holy Spirit is doing the heavy lifting, not us. And when you're thinking in terms of series, and this is the analogy that we've used for forever, is you don't need to hit a home run each and every week. You get on base, get a walk, get hit by the pitch if you need to. If you're someone who cries on cue and that's going to move somebody else, hey, get on base. I don't know if that's actually
what are you saying right now?
You're the one who cries.
Spiritually manipulate people. Anyway,
yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. Okay,
listen, if you're preaching and you sit down and standing up is really going to make a point, jump out of that chair,
Jump out of that chair.
Jump out of the chair, baby.
But if I think we need to take the pressure off of ourselves, because if I think this has to be fantastic every week, like this has to be the best sermon somebody's ever heard, well, then every week is going to be disappointing. But if you think, hey, I need to be faithful, I need to study as much as I should, I need to communicate what the Holy Spirit has laid on my heart, and then I need to let go and let, okay, God, you're going to move this how you're going to move it, and it's not my responsibility to change people's hearts, well, then it takes the pressure off.
I think what helps take the pressure off is realizing you don't have to come up with something original every single week. Like no one's ever said this before. Newsflash, someone's probably said it in just a different way. If they haven't, it's probably heresy. Like,
you probably shouldn't say it.
You're going to probably be repeating in some way, shape, or form yourself or another pastor or a commentary. That's okay. Like, yes, put it in your own words and let God work through it. But don't think, oh, they said that, so now I can't use any version of that. Like, that is silly. We have more resources available at our fingertips than any other generation of preachers to ever walk the face of the earth. We are being lazy if we are neglecting the resources that are right at our fingertips. I think it's silly to not use ChatGPT, commentaries, whatever it takes that's going to help you in that process and get better with your sermon writing. Take advantage of it.
And dude,
I read a lot of sermons. Like I love reading manuscripts. So
time with your people, dude. Like have lunch with people. Like that counts as you're not taking off from ministry to go have lunch with a church member. Like that's the thing. That's literally what you get paid to do is like be available. So, and some of your best sermon content will come from those conversations, or it'll give you ideas or whatever. So I would say like, use your time in a way. It's that idea from like the Great Commission. Jesus says, basically as you go, so it's like live your life with your people. And I mean, I think you'll just stay a lot fresher.
So you're saying do life with them?
Yes. Navigate life with them, love with them. Love them.
Let go and let God.
Yeah. In this season, walk with them,
Well, that's really good. I was listening to a podcast talking about John MacArthur's preaching style. And John MacArthur talks about how he does not use application, and that's the work of the Holy Spirit. His job is to only explain the text, which I thoroughly disagree with. I don't think that's preaching. I think that's just teaching. And one thing that made me think about when I was listening to that interview about MacArthur was that when I'm with people and like I go back to the text and I'm writing the sermon, it's now like illuminating the text in a way that like my illustrations come quicker. I like what Jeff was talking about. Like I can picture people receiving this sermon and like how it's going to impact them, and that colors like the illustrations I use, the way I talk about the text, how I need to define certain terms. Like every time I say the word sanctification, I explain what sanctification is because I know there's people in my congregation who don't know what sanctification is. And like not assuming things, but like knowing your people. This is all really good. Hey, let's go on to another question here. Tim, you had to kind of go through this, and Andrew, I don't know if you've had to do this, and I think Jeff may have gone through this.
I don't know what question you're asking, but
my question is, how do you know when it's time to let a staff member go versus keep investing in them?
Oh man.
I mean, I guess you can also interpret this as like letting a volunteer go too, if you have like a high capacity volunteer. How do you know when it's time?
Fortunately, in my current role, I have not, but in previous roles, both staff and volunteers, I've had to let go. And it's when you're trying to coach somebody, but it feels more like CPR. So it's not just that you're, hey, here, this is going to help get you from this level to the next, but your coaching feels like I'm just trying to keep you alive. Like I'm trying to keep your head just barely above water enough to possibly get someone to shore. That's an issue. And I don't think it should ever be a surprise if someone is getting let go. I think if you have to tell someone, hey, this isn't working out, we're going to have to move on, and they clutch their pearls and I had no idea, you've done something really, really wrong as a leader. I think it needs to be obvious to everybody that it's coming.
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions that I would walk through with the staff member. And yeah, you're right, Frank. I've had to do this in the past. One would be, are they humble? Are they hungry? And are they healthy? And if one of those things is completely missing, and even with coaching, right? Like if they're not in a healthy spot and I'm asking them, hey, what can we do to help you get to a healthy spot? Like, does it mean stepping down from this particular ministry for a season? Does it mean resting? Do you need some extra time off? Could I bring alongside an extra volunteer to give you a little bit of a breather? If they're constantly missing one of those three things, even with coaching and even with pastoring, then I would say it's a mismatch. But if they are teachable and they are trustworthy, then I'm going to keep investing all day long, and I'm going to go to bat on behalf of those staff members to do what we can to keep them. But they got to be humble, hungry, and healthy. Like those are three big ones.
I think probably the place that this would come into play the most is vision alignment. Like if they are not aligned, or this can especially happen with experienced volunteers or staff members who were there before you took over, or there before like a vision casting season happened, and now you have this new vision, or maybe there was no vision before, and so kind of what I ran into here, and it wasn't like in a malicious way, but everyone was just kind of doing their own thing and they had their own important stuff. And so when we went through a process of like, kind of coming together on what vision would be, there were people who did not align with that. And so you have to have that hard conversation of like, I appreciate what you've done in the past, but this is the direction we're going. And if you want to come this direction, man, we got all the resources and training and time we want to spend with you. But if not, then it's probably best for someone else to take over this role or for us to just not have this role. That's also a possibility, especially in a volunteer capacity. So there are some things that the church used to do that we don't do anymore. And there are new things that we do. And there's a lot of things we do in a different way and with different requirements and stuff.
One thing we have to do constantly is come alongside our staff members and make sure we're preventing burnout, because if they've already hit burnout, it's too late. Like it's very difficult to reverse those steps. So one thing that we do with our full-time staff members at Lakeview is we just ask them on a regular basis, how are you feeling? How are you doing? How's your ministry rhythm going? And then I'll ask questions like, what would rest look like for you right now? Like if you needed rest, what does it look like? Are you taking the rest that you need? So sabbatic Sundays have been part of that rhythm for us at Lakeview. So we encourage all of our staff every 7 Sundays to take a Sunday off, and that seemed to be we're about 9 months into that, and all the feedback I've gotten from our staff has been super healthy and really life-giving and encouraging for them. So trying to prevent burnout as opposed to turn it around once they're in the burnout stage.
Cleaning it up is way worse.
Let's do a different question. What doctrine or theological view you've changed your mind on over the years?
Is this our last episode ever? Are we about to like blow this thing up or what?
we're about to get super canceled.
This is it.
Yep.
We're done.
Why are you guys getting canceled? What are you going to say?
We're talking about doctrines that have changed.
I mean, I think there's probably like some nuanced theology.
How are you a heretic now that you didn't used to be before? Go ahead, Frank, you first.
There's 2 things that come to my mind immediately. One is this is like a very soft move to center, if anything. But like I was a hardcore complementarian, fresh out of Bible college. And I think that there's a principle that said like the harsh edges of your theology get knocked off when you're actually doing ministry.
Does that mean you become less of a jerk?
Yeah, for sure. You become,
I think that's
hopefully
that's the goal.
That's kind of the goal. You leave vocational ministry training.
Yeah.
Wait, Frank, are you saying that what you are right now is center? I'm just kidding.
He said a move towards the center.
Yeah, that's right.
I was going to say I'm still complementarian, and I'm still like I would argue I'm more solidified in my complementarian views now than I ever was. However, I think what I have done is correctly place that doctrine or that theology in its proper weight of importance, in the sense that like, I mean, I'm totally okay with like coming alongside churches that have more egalitarian views. I have good sisters in Christ who are in ministry, and I'm rooting for them, and I want them to succeed. And I think that there's a world where complementarian and egalitarian views are not like separating issues, but more of like tertiary issues that we can kind of still focus on the main thing.
I think for me it would be the role of the Holy Spirit in the church. And maybe it's just maturation, but in my brain, the Holy Spirit is what guides and convicts the individuals. But then it's been in the past decade or so that I've really begun to cold medicine or something. I don't know what's happening to my brain right now. Been in the past decade or so that I have started to see and maybe not fully, but partially understand the role that the Holy Spirit plays in individual churches and the global church as a whole. We need to, and when I say we, I mean I have started to have a less individualistic approach to how God is working, and seeing how God is working in my life through the church, but also how the Holy Spirit is at work in the church, not just in the individual lives in the church.
I think one of the shifts that I had probably 3 years into vocational ministry at Lakeview was, and it's never really like come across hardcore in my preaching or in my.
So 3 years in, so when you were 22 years old?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just,
Well, it's
just
because
clarify.
I went to a Christian school. So in high school, I got into a big debate with our Bible teacher who was a Calvinist. And I was like, what this? And that was like the first time I was embraced. Like I'd ever like heard of any sort of Calvinist theology ever was in high school. And so like, as he was like explaining it, I was like, oh, this is wrong. Like something in my core felt wrong. And
Your
so I was like,
flesh always rejects truth when you first hear it.
I was like, this can't be right. This can't be right. It's like he and I went back and forth and it was tough. Like I had my youth pastor who was an Arminian. I was like, you got to help me like combat this stuff and
own this guy.
Yeah. Like, so I was like, this can't be right.
Did you send him an invitation to your seminary graduation?
Then I started reading my Bible and I was like, oh
Yeah,
man,
it's really hard to read Romans and
like,
Ephesians.
I was like, oh man, like I think I was
This is so Calvinist talking about how they're not as Calvinist anymore.
like, so then I had a heart shift, but like I have friends who like this comes up every time they preach. I don't feel that that needs to happen. Like it just doesn't make sense to me that you have to always get into this debate every time you get into preaching or a discussion with someone else. So when it does come up in the text, I try to faithfully present both sides, and it's probably kind of obvious where I land, but I don't think we have to be hardcore
So
here.
wishy-washy, dude. Come on.
Look, I know where I land. I don't mind telling people where I land, but I don't feel like we have to divide over it.
But to be fair, as you get older, I mean, like I am just as Calvinistic as I was probably when I got introduced to this stuff. But I think the reality is that you realize that this type of soteriology is the background reality of what is happening and shaping us. Where like you can still say you need to put your faith in Christ. You have to confess and believe and have action.
And I say that every single
and
week.
move that towards that, while simultaneously holding that also belief that God is sovereignly working in the background. Like I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I do think that there are people who want to bang that drum and make that their whole personality. When I don't think
It's annoying.
Spurgeon or Calvin did that, or whoever other.
Like there's mystery there. There's definitely a gray area there, and you can have a position and you can lean on that and harp on that. But if it becomes all that you are, like, dude, like, come on, there's got to be more.
It's
I
cage
think there
stage.
comes a point when
Come
you
on.
realize that systematic theology, no matter what systematic theology it is, whether you are a dispensationalist or you are full on covenant theologian, like no matter what it is that you are clinging to, it is a human understanding of what is happening. And to think that we are going to get it absolutely right is arrogant and it's hubris at the height. And we're going to get in trouble when that one theological point or subpoint is what you want to base all of your convictions on.
Yeah, I would just say for me, like,
Catholic views.
what's that?
I said, you want to espouse your Catholic views now?
Oh yeah,
Yes,
for
talk
sure.
about the Eucharist.
Tell
Yes.
us more about transubstantiation.
I will. No, probably for me, I've just become more ecumenical. Like the list of secondary issues has gotten way bigger. So like if it's in the creed, that's pretty important. If it's not, then we can probably differ on it and still not only do ministry together, but have fellowship together. So, we've done some stuff with Methodist churches around here. We've done, and we definitely disagree on a lot of things. But we still, we can still run a VBS together. It's not that big of a deal. So that's the biggest thing for me. Any particular issue that we're thinking of, probably the complementarian issue, I've become more egalitarian and just more open to the reality that all egalitarians are not like evil, Bible misleading people. Like there's good.
Some of them are.
There are. Yeah. And there's some really bad complementarian theologians too. But you don't know that when you're only reading them and you don't see any good arguments from the other side. So, it's just for me, it's like the ecumenical thing is just like there are people who love Jesus, who love the gospel, who love the kingdom, who have come to different conclusions about things that are on that growing secondary issue list.
I think Jeff just nailed something. When you allow yourself to read outside of your framework, that's not only like it's not only a good practice, it's a beneficial practice because like you start seeing things shaped and worked out in ways that you can never, and you kind of create your own echo chamber if the only thing you're listening to is like dead white reform guys, right? Like you got to like,
but also when your view of everybody who thinks differently than you is a caricature of the people that think differently than you, then how can you ever come to love those people or minister to those people or minister with those people?
Well, and I would say too, to go back to what Frank said, when your identity is wrapped up in being a fill in the blank Calvinist, Arminian, complementarian, then you are actually very fragile to having your view questioned, because now that's not a view being questioned. That's like who I am being questioned. And so you find yourself constantly having to prove, having to give your bona fides to your like in group that I'm a very strong Calvinist and I'm a 5-point. And, it's like, I just honestly don't care what label. Like I've just kind of gotten to the point where I don't really care about labels that much anymore. Like, do you follow Christ or not? And if it looks like you're not, I'm just going to treat you like I would treat any other unbeliever and like try to build a relationship together. So
last question. As we wrap up for the summer, as we get ready to go. And I mean, the reality is after this podcast, we might have to really consider what we're going to do. If you weren't in ministry, I feel like I get this question like once a month from lay people. If you weren't in ministry, what job would you be doing right now?
Why are people asking you that question so often, dude?
I'm say,
a little worried.
Why is that once a month for you?
No, so have you ever like met somebody and they're like learning about their job and they're like in a trade or something you've never like know anything about? Like I had an electrician over at my house who goes to our church, and I was just asking him like what his job is like. He's an electrician for like corporations, like big companies. It's not like a house electrician. So I'm like, tell me about what that looks like. And then I start thinking like I could never do that. Like that's a very specific kind of trade.
That feels like work.
Because we only work once a week, right?
Yeah.
So what would be a job that you could see yourself doing if you weren't in ministry right now?
Oh, I would definitely
real. Like don't.
No, I would definitely be in the trades. Like I could be a framer or maybe work in HVAC or something. I like that. But then also now more recently, I could see myself pursuing like coaching. I think it'd be fun. There's a lot of parallel. I love the prep, like before practice. I love the like trying to figure out how to develop a specific thing in a player. Like I love all that stuff. It's fun.
I'd be in higher ed. I have kind of an academic leaning anyway, and I really like the idea of having 22 weeks off a year. That sounds pretty great. And whether it's full-time teaching, because again, I don't know what subject matter I would be teaching in if it was not, the reason that I teach now is based on ministry chops. But if it wasn't teaching from a theological perspective, even whether it be college recruiting, I think if someone handed me $1 billion and said, hey, you need to work for the rest of your life, but you don't need to make an income from what you're doing, I would try to find a way to be like an SID at a small liberal arts Christian college or something and be the guy who goes to every softball game and every volleyball game and has my kids around student athletes who are pursuing Christ. I think that would be spectacular, but I'd find some way to be connected to probably a Christ-centered university setting somewhere.
I would probably find myself somehow on a football field doing something, whether it's athletic training, coaching would be fun.
He loves helping guys stretch their hamstrings.
I'm a big fan of sports. Football is my all-time favorite sport, so I would want to be in the sports world somehow, some way, whatever that looked like.
Several years ago, and you guys were with me. We were at, I think it was the National Youth Workers Convention. We were working in a booth for the Download Youth Ministry, and they kind of like convinced us all to be like salesmen to sell Download Youth Ministry, and something like I hit like a click where it's like, oh, I can talk to people and help them. Like,
so if you could do anything, you'd be in sales.
Hold on, I'm almost done. Help them triage their problems and give them solutions, whatever.
He would be financing all of our lives that way.
Yeah. I know, but like I know this sounds like weird. I don't know what it would be, like what cars or whatever. But like I do think like
anything in the world, you're selling cars.
If in a practical sense, I think I would be in sales of some sort. Maybe be like your dad, or like
you absolutely
sell
could do
coffins or whatever your dad does. I don't know what he does.
Frankie,
some sort of sales like that. If I could like choose like the joy point in my life, I would be somewhere in like a forward facing customer service entertainment kind of thing at Disney. I would love to be the Jungle Cruise. That'd be so fun.
I think you'd be a great skipper.
Improv comedy on a Jungle Cruise.
There we go.
That would be so
improv
fun.
Comedy that you really just tell the same jokes 40 times.
No, I would figure it out,
but to different people.
Yeah. That'd be so fun. Hey, hopefully this episode was good for you guys. We'll be back in about, I don't know, 6 to 8 weeks. Oh, wow.
We are on the same page.
We were about the same time. Yeah. And we hope that you have a great summer. Feel free to connect with us on social media. We are looking forward to coming back and coming in early next year, the Practically Pastoring Conference.
Let's
We're
go.
looking forward to it. I'm Frank Gill.
I'm Jeff Simpson.
I'm Andrew Larson.
And I'm Timothy Miller.
This is Practically Pastoring. See ya.
The backside of water.